He was supposed to be released from the Humboldt County Jail in time for dinner. Raymond Eacret had called his mom to tell her that all the charges were dropped and he was coming home, but he would never make it. Instead, he was beaten to a bloody pulp and strung up in his cell. The case was mislabeled and dismissed. Who did this to Raymond? Why wasn't he allowed to go home? Why was his mother not allowed to give him last rites as a Native American? Check out my True Crime Tuesday video where we dive into this disturbing case. The link is in the video description. You're watching Chasing Justice with award-winning crime writer Sonova Cantrell. Stay tuned. We'll be talking about cold cases, criminal conspiracies, corruption, and the dark psychology of criminal masterminds. I know you're going to enjoy the show, but before you do, please like, subscribe, and share. All of that BS really helps us defeat the algorithm monster. His name is Raymond Eacret, I believe it's like secret, but Eacret. Okay, his name is Raymond Eacret, and he was a Native American living in California. He was 34 years old, and on June 19th, 2015, he was arrested on a misdemeanor parole violation, and he was scheduled to be released on June 26th of 2015. Now, within hours of his release, his mother had gotten a phone call saying that the charges were dropped and he was going to get to be home by dinner. So everyone is excited. He's getting to come home. But then they get another phone call later that would devastate them for the rest of their lives. He was found hanging. Supposedly in his cell, which was odd because it was the medical unit. And they classed his death as, there we go. And so the problem is by the time the mother, Sheila, got to get to to the prison to see what happened, and we're talking about Humboldt community, Humboldt, that's a hard word to say, Humboldt County Jail. So by the time they got there to the jail, she pulled back the sheet. They show you, your loved one, and unfortunately, it's the worst thing a mother has to do is identify the body and that kind of thing. Well, she pulled back the sheet. She wanted to see, and Raymond, who supposedly did this with bed sheets in his cell, actually was beaten to a pulp. He had black eyes. He had broken ribs. It looked like he had been kicked in the back. He had broken bones protruding through the skin. And yet they were trying to convince this mother that he did this to himself. And he had a ligature mark around the front part of his neck and then bruising around his neck. The ligature was cut into his skin really deeply, and almost, I would say, it was probably close to slitting his throat, but it was cut into him extremely deeply. And but they say that this is what this is, and it didn't matter how much this mother fought. It didn't matter what happened in the system. This gentleman was classed as this and is still classed as this to this day. Now, this is Chris says, may I ask what state this in? Humboldt County Correction Center in California. Yeah. So this is California. Cricket, can you say that word better than me? Humboldt? Humboldt? Humboldt. Cricket, are you there? Are you too chicken to say the word?
No, I was muted.
He was muted, okay. But it's Humboldt. Humboldt, it's Humboldt with a T, so Humboldt. And the deal with it is it's a, it's a disturbing case where this young man was addicted to meth, and he had a past history of it. It would seem that his family, some of his family members had the same problem. And it almost feels like since that drugs had been in the system and been, he had drug problems, it was almost like it was just, okay, we're going to class it as this and we're not going to investigate and we're just going to move on. Well, what people don't understand is what kind of person you are. You can be a multimillionaire. You can be a doctor. You can be a lawyer. You can be a brain surgeon. And you get addicted to drugs. It doesn't matter how nice of a person you are. your life is going to go downhill. You're going to end up in jail at some point or another, and you're going to end up fighting for your life. And at this point, on June of 2015, it is shown in a few different websites and things that talk about this, that he was trying to change his lifestyle. He was trying to change and trying to break addiction and trying to make a different life for himself. And so this is where I want to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent, because I wrote about this case in August of 2019. I wrote it on my blog, and it was one of those cases that really broke my heart, because to write a blog post, you need about 500 words to write a decent blog post. You can have more, but having less, it's just not a really good blog post. Raymond was one of those people that had so little available online that I struggled to write a 500-word blog post. And then I thought, well, surely, that's 2019. It's 2024. I'm back in the true crime game. I'm pulling out all of my archive cases. I'm doing updates, trying to see. There's nothing. Me and the team, we dug around on this case all afternoon, and there was one article that I seen today that I hadn't seen before, and that article was actually about some of the cases that we're going to tie into this. So there's nothing new out there. And when you have a case that everyone stops talking about, the leads dry up, and there's nothing for the cops to do. I mean, what are the police supposed to do if there's no leads whatsoever and they have no way to go? It becomes a cold case. But then here's the problem. All of the family, they're still left there to grieve. They're still trying to figure out how to live their life without their loved one. And yet everybody stopped talking about it. While the world stops talking about the loss of the loved one, the loved ones that are left, their world just stops. So in their reality, the world doesn't exist anymore. The world is done as of the day that they lost their loved one. And so they don't understand that the world's not talking about it anymore, because their world has stopped. But unfortunately, the world keeps turning and things keep going. And so what can we do to help and serve in this kind of capacity? We need to get back to talking about those cases that there isn't anything new to say, but that doesn't mean we need to stop talking. My friend Marianne from Missouri Missing, she talked about her daughter's case until the day she couldn't talk anymore. She literally passed away this year, and from the moment until she stopped talking, until she became nonverbal, until that moment, she was still talking about Angie. She was still talking about her daughter's case. And that's what we have to do. I left her a message, and I told her, I said, I will not stop talking about Angie until we bring her home or I die. We're not going to stop talking. And I feel like with Raymond, he hasn't had that. And so today I wanted to talk to you guys about Raymond, because I feel like his story needs to be told, whether he was struggling with addiction or not. We've talked about that 10,000 times with all these cases in Madison County. It's almost like if there's drugs involved in any way, people just think it's a throwaway case. Just think it's a throwaway person. But that throwaway person is still a human being. That throwaway person is someone's loved one. That person has a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle. They have somebody that cares. And so there are no throwaway cases. There are no throwaway humans. And so this is what I want to talk about today. Now, when I did research this case, he was a Native American. And one of the injustices in the situation that made the situation even worse, they have mislabeled it as this. When it's an obvious homicide, you don't beat the crap out of yourself and then go do this. Some of the injuries he's had, I don't think is physically possible to do to yourself. But, you know, I guess maybe if you got yourself in a car accident, you could have some of those kinds of injuries, but the car did it to you, not yourself. But he was so brutalized that there's no way he could have done it to himself. I contend that if he did try to do this, and I'm trying to be circumspect, you know, if you see me kind of hesitating and, you know, I'll throw a Southern slang in there. If you see me him-hawing around, you know, there's a little bit of text in there for you. If you see me him-hawing around, it's because I'm trying to be circumspect because I know some of his family and friends are watching. But I want to tell you, if you have ribs crushed through the skin, okay, you have protruding ribs, you are beaten to a pulp, you've got some huge gosh awful bruise between your shoulder blades like someone's kicked you, how are you going to tear up bed sheets and hang yourself? You're not going to have the strength to do all of that because that takes some physical strength. And when you're tore all to pieces. So to me, it doesn't make sense that you could class this case as this, which I feel like a stupid cartoon character, Wile E. Coyote, you know, from the 80s, you know, Wile E. Coyote. But this is what YouTube has reduced us to.
Right. But they even had conflicting stories with that. One was the sign you're holding up,
yes,
where he hung himself. The other, he was laying in bed. So which are we going to go with?
Well, and then the next thing we want to tell people is he was in the medical unit of the Humboldt County Police Department jail. In that medical unit, it is kind of like a padded room. They put people who are having tendencies for this in the medical unit because there's nothing to do this with. So, and there were inmates in that jail who validated that to some of the family, and a worker there that validated it is nearly impossible to do this in the medical facility of that jail because they set it up on purpose to prevent this. And so this is why I always hesitate, because I'm sitting here going, but I always look at everything from a, you know, a kind of a physical science type way of looking at it. And physically, W says the British say top yourself for that word. Okay. The British say a lot of things too. Yeah, there's some sayings. I like the British, the way they do things on some of them. Sorry, sidetracked ADHD moment. But the concept is physically, it takes a little bit of strength to do this. You know what I mean? And I don't know about you. I have had bruised ribs, and I had fibromyalgia one time. I also had back injuries that destroyed 7 spots in my spine, and 2 of them were between my shoulder blades. Thank God I don't have to deal with any of that anymore. But I physically couldn't have done something like that with the injuries that I had. And what the injuries that I had weren't as protrusive and as bad as what this guy had. So I'm thinking, you know, how could you physically do this with the physical damage to the body? I don't think it is. Chris says, please tell me about your friend's daughter's case. I will do that. Her name's Marianne, and she created Misery Missing. The daughter is Angie Yarnell. I've done several videos about it. And Chris, if you will remind me after the show, I'll send you the link to some of my videos about that. Victor says, was Raymond killed by an officer or a fellow inmate? Now there is, if you go back, I went back through all of those old articles that I'd read before. And if you go through and you take time to read all the comments on all the articles, you start getting a little bit of insights in some things. Now, they said that there was a inmate, and what the rumor mill through the prison system was at the time, a specific inmate actually killed him and then strung him up. And but that actual, nobody would turn on that actual inmate because that actual inmate had gang ties and everybody was afraid. So that's what I've read through all of those little chats and things on the articles that have been there for years. But here's something that we want to get into. Someone was trying to write an article, and I've run into this before as a crime writer myself, and then also following other writers. When you're investigating something, when you're a keyboard investigator, an armchair sleuth like we are, you need to make sure you don't come to your conclusion first and then try to find evidence to support your conclusion. You want to find the evidence first and then see what the evidence comes to as a conclusion. Because what happens is you're going to end up with something that happened here. There was an article that come out a couple years or so after this all happened. Let me see if I can pull up that article. And I'm not going to say who it was or what magazine it was in, because this person did a good job with what they had. But this person also tried to tie Raymond's case into 3 other cases from the same Humboldt County Jail. Okay. Now, Raymond, there's something we haven't mentioned. Raymond was a Native American. He actually was from, I think, the Yurok tribe. Let's see. Yeah, the Yurok tribe. And he, one of the things that the prison system did, if you could already say there has been injustice done already, because he was allowed to be beat to death and hung before he was released. That's injustice major. But another injustice that was done during the system is the mother couldn't get access to the body to give him his last rites as a Native American. So he was not able to receive those last rites as his right as a Native American. And so that was disturbing in itself as well. But this person in the article tried to tie it to other Native Americans, like Native Americans are being killed in prisons, and I'm sure they are. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to racism, Native Americans don't get the publicity that other races get, because you want to talk genocide, you talk Native American. But we won't get into all that politics. But they tried to tie it into, there was another Native American that was supposedly killed suspiciously in this jail. Now, they actually list 3 other cases, and these 3 cases supposedly happened within months of each other. They mention James Hans Peters, Peter Stewart, and Martin Cotton. And they tried to blend all of those together and say that there's a problem in this jail system. And then they also bring in a woman out of another county in California. They also throw in a lady with a suspicious death behind bars in South Dakota. They also try to tie in someone out of New Mexico. And they bring in, basically, they find 5 Native American cases from all across the U.S. and try to tie them together like there's some giant conspiracy against Native Americans in the prison system. And I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm also saying you can't just random cherry pick cases from across the U.S. at different time frames with different situations, blend them together and say that it's a conspiratorial type of story.
Yeah,
I don't
it all
believe
came out of one prison.
Right. I mean, they're not all in one prison. They're not all the same
Exactly.
circumstances. They're not all Native Americans, and they're all different time frames. So the 3 that we're gonna talk about actually happened, but they didn't actually happen at the same time. They happened almost 10 years before. They happened in 2007. So it was like 8.5 years or so before. So that automatically breaks that thin thread saying that, okay, they're attacking and killing Native Americans in prison. There might be some racial gangs in prisons that would attack Native Americans. I'm not saying that's not happening. But in this case, you can't take just random cases from around the US and try to tie them together and make a conspiracy. What happens, and this is what I think happened to Raymond Eacret's case, when you do that, you're trying to create this big mystical conspiracy across the US, and this is a major problem. We need attention drawn to this. Well, what happens is when people start to look at all of those other cases, for one, they take the eyes off of Raymond. Okay. So all of that took the case, took it away from Raymond. The attention wasn't on this case anymore. It was on this big conspiracy network of all these other cases. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is a horrible thing. And then they research that one and they're like, wait a minute, that one doesn't really seem like a conspiracy or that it fits with this narrative. And then they go to the next one and they find the same conclusion over and over again. And then what they've done is they've just dismissed it all. So since the person's theory doesn't hold water, when it doesn't hold water, it damages all of the cases. So this is one thing I try to tell people when they want to do what I do. And I'm like, fine, do it. We need more people talking about these cases. But when you go to write something, use standard research practices. Everything on the internet's not true. You need to find 3 reputable sources that say the same thing before you say you type it up yourself. And so this is where we're going to talk about these other cases. But Cricket, did you have anything to add before we kind of go into the other cases?
Well, I mean, like the way you were saying, these are from different states being blocked. It's not like you have one state and hundreds of in jailhouse murders. So you can't say there's a conspiracy at all.
Right. Well, there's nothing, there's no threads tying them together that can hold together. Yeah. Tammy, you have anything you want to say before we jump into these cases?
Well, unless you start digging in, you're going to think that, because it took a little digging to finally realize that they weren't really necessarily related. You have to kind of dig below the surface, and then you see some blogs, and you might read a blog, and like you said, you think, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and then you realize, wait a minute, is that really true? I mean, it doesn't match up with everything else, so yeah, it's.
Well, and that's the thing. You first read about Raymond Eacret and it breaks your heart. You're like, oh my gosh, they killed him because he's Native American, and then they wouldn't let his mom give him his last rites, and this is just horrible. And and then you look and you're like, wait a minute, they killed him. It may or may not have been because he was Native American. It may or may not have had anything to do with the jailhouse staff. It most likely had something to do with an inmate. According to the rumor mill, and you keep stepping into it a little farther and a little farther, and you find out, you're like, okay, wait a minute. All of these other cases that was used as evidence to prove that there's a conspiracy with law enforcement against Native Americans, all of these other cases don't line up anymore, and so then, but what happens is it kind of discredits the whole thing. So people stop thinking about all of them. And so I'm gonna jump over here to a website that it's demanding a coroner's inquest in a series of cases, which I agree, they all need a coroner's inquest, but not because they're tied together. And we're gonna find out about that. Now, we are talking about Raymond Eacret. His case happened in June of 2015. Now, the case of the other Native American that they were trying to tie in, like there's a conspiracy, was James Hans Peters. Now, James Hans Peters, all of that happened in 2007. Okay. Now, I'm going to read you the first few sentences of this blog that is demanding a coroner's inquest. And I'm just going to try to read it straight. I'm going to try not to interrupt myself and comment until I'm done. So here we go. Good luck to me. 3 young men dead within 3 months of each other, 2007, in unexplained and violent deaths. Each of these men died in custody of and or during an interaction with local law enforcement officers. Okay, so the key is unexplained. Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to go on down. We're going to talk about this first unexplained. Okay. First unexplained is James Hans Peters. That's who we're going to talk about first. Okay. His was actually, he died in September of 2007. Okay. James Hans Peters, again, I'm going to read you verbatim what this says. And then I'm going to talk to you guys about this, because if you read this just straight like it is, you're automatically going to think conspiracy theory. You're going to want me to take my fedora off and put on my tinfoil fedora. Okay. Tinfoil hat. But then if you dig down into it and you pay attention, you're like, wait a minute. That's not saying what you think it is. Okay. On August 29th, 2007, James Hans Peters, a Yurok man from Humboldt, another Native American tribe, was brought to St. Joseph's Hospital in Yurok from Humboldt County Correctional Facility. Hans had been in jail since June 23, 2007. Sheriff jail employees said that he had assaulted a correctional officer. Hans had been waiting transport to the hospital for a court-ordered psychiatric evaluations. Sheriffs say that he did this on August 29th in the solitary cell he was in, using bed sheets hanging from the vent in the ceiling. Officers did not inform Hans' family in Humboldt and threatened to have them arrested when they came after hearing the news from an anonymous hospital employee. Hans' mother and relatives were not allowed to see Hans for 20 hours. On September 6th, he finally died. Okay, that sounds horrible. Okay, how many of you guys think that sounds dreadful? How many of you? Timmy, you talk. When you first read that, I know your opinion changed after you talked to me.
Yes,
what was your opinion when you first read that?
Because I couldn't understand why they had to wait 20 hours to see him. And then I couldn't understand the family going in there, and they were threatening to have them arrested. And it just sounded really terrible.
And when you first read that, you thought, oh my gosh, the jail has done something dreadful to this man.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let me go. Cricket, I know you've been working in true crime long enough. Did you have that same first gut reaction, or did you catch it right away?
I caught it only because I know there's procedures. They'll leave a body on a sidewalk for hours. The ME has to show up. This has to be done. That has to be done. Yep. Now, if the parents just showed up demanding to see their son, and they were told they couldn't and that they had to leave, but kept insisting, then therefore they're trespassing. And I can see why the police would say, if you don't leave, we're going to arrest you.
Yeah. See, this is when I look at this, I read at this whole thing different. The first thing I noticed when I read this, he had been in jail since June 23rd. So he had been in jail for 2 months. During that time, while he was in jail, it doesn't say what he was in jail for to begin with, but it says during that time, he had assaulted a correctional officer, and he was waiting for a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. Now, this is what people need to understand. When you have an infraction behind bars, you do something you're not supposed to do while you're behind bars. It's not just they just add more tally marks to your list. Okay. You're just stuck in there longer. They actually have a procedure. You will get arrested inside the jail. You will get arrested by an officer. Your stuff will be searched in your cell while you stand there in cuffs. They will put your stuff in a pillowcase if you're lucky to have a pillowcase. They will search you bodily if necessary. They will escort you to the next section that you're going to be placed in. Then they will go through the whole admissions process with those officers. They will search you again, bodily again, if necessary. They will search your stuff again, and then they will put you in the new location. Then you will go through the whole legal process with, most of the time it's a public defender. If you get one, you'll have a public defender. You'll go through the whole process. You'll see a judge, and they will say, how do you plead to these charges? You'll say this or not, and then you will get a judgment from the judge, and they will add more time to your thing. So there is a whole process and procedures that has to be done when you are behind bars. It's not just okay, you did this, you punched a guard in the face, he's going to punch you back and throw you in the hole. That may have happened in the 70s. I know it happened in 68 when I was writing about this guy in this book, shameless plug. He got kind of the Rambo treatment at one time. But he was a jerk and probably deserved it. That's not very nice or politically correct, but that's the truth. But he even says that to me. But here's the thing. All of that takes time. This man had been in this system for 2 months, and he had a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. Okay, it takes a lot to get a court to order a psychiatric evaluation, because that doesn't happen after one psychotic meltdown. Okay, you have one meltdown, you punch a guard, they don't automatically give you a psych eval. So that tells me this person, over the course of that 2 months, not taking into account anything he'd done before or in his past record, over the last few months, he has had repeated episodes of psychotic breaks, because they were going through the whole system and got it passed by a judge. This man needs an evaluation. So this is a ongoing process. Okay, so when he got assaulted the officer, then they move him. The standard procedure is they move him to solitary. Okay, they move you to solitary confinement. At that point, he wasn't exhibiting any major tendencies like this, or they would have put him in medical. Okay, instead, they put him in the standard procedure, which is you punch a guard, you get thrown. Nowadays, they don't even have the whole, but they put you in solitary confinement. Okay, now solitary confinement. That you still have bed sheets. There's still vents above your head. There's still options to do this if you're so inclined. Now, what happens is, this said the officers didn't inform the Hans family. An anonymous hospital employee did. Okay, so while they are still trying to figure out what the crap happened, somebody broke protocol and called mama. Okay. Now, of course, mama is going to react the way mamas do, and they're going to flip out and show up at the jail. Okay. Well, you can't just go to a jail of any shape, size. I don't care if it's a federal prison, if it's a county jail, you can't show up at the jail and demand to see someone. That's not the way it works. Okay. So somebody broke protocol in the hospital setting and called and told them before it was ready. Now, here's the thing. It said 20 hours. 20 hours. They had to, first of all, they had to see if he was dead, which he wasn't. So they had to do all of their surgeries and all of their things. They were trying to save the man's life here. They didn't have time to deal with mama's emotions. Now, that sounds dreadful and horrible, but you have to understand, these people operate on procedure. Okay, they have to do so many things to get everything ready. The only person in that cell at the beginning was the EMT. The EMT sees the man's alive, gets him down. Okay, nobody else goes into that cell until an investigator comes. Okay, you have an internal investigator, you have an external investigator. Both of them have to investigate because they want to cross-reference each other. Okay, and if it's something that the prison did, you need an outside source to investigate. Okay, all of that takes time. 20 hours isn't even a whole day. And you have to understand, if this happened at night, the first 10 hours, they may have been sleeping. You know what I'm saying?
And so, they also bring in a therapist for the guards.
You do. Well, and then it says that he didn't die till the 6th of September. He didn't die till 7 days later, or 8. So that means he was being worked on by the medics. They're like, okay, we're trying to save this kid. We're trying to, do surgeries, whatever had to be done. They didn't have time. And the way I read this, it was less than a day and they were dealing with the parents. Now you show up at a jail and you start kicking a fit at the front door saying you're coming in to see somebody. They have every right in the world to arrest you. And they'll let you in all right, but you ain't getting back out, So when you write in this manner, it incites people to think, oh my gosh, this is a horrible conspiracy. This is a horrible thing. Okay, I say that this is a legitimate one of these because of all of the information we had at the beginning. The information was that he had been there for 2 months. He has a court-ordered psych eval, and he had punched a guard. So that tells me he had had emotional breaks, a series of them over the last 2 months. So is this possible? Absolutely. Now, after I explain that, does anybody in the audience still believe that it wasn't one of these? Chris says it sounds suspicious that the family had to hear from an anonymous person. That's not the jail's fault. That person broke protocol and called when they weren't supposed to. When it sucks. I mean, it's not, nobody wants to do this, but there's a protocol that has to be done and they have to investigate to see what happens. And then at a certain point in their procedure, they would have called mama. Okay. But it wasn't time yet. They were still in the middle of life and death, trying to save a kid, trying to investigate to see if it was something that was it an internal problem or was it actually this? They hadn't got to the point to call yet. So I believe whoever that person was should have been fired, because what's happened is if they had waited and gone through the procedures, they would have called mama and said, okay, look, we've had to rush your son to the hospital because he tried this. And we've been working on him for so many hours and we've got it this, and this is what we believe happened. They will have more information to share at that point in time. And everything would have been smoother. Okay. And so it's not suspicious that they heard about it from an anonymous person when you realize that it wasn't that the police didn't call. The police hadn't got to that point in their to-do list yet. And unfortunately, the mother's emotions wasn't the top priority at that point. Their top priority was to see what happened to this inmate, to save the inmate, to investigate, to see what happened. So this one, Venus says, why are they denying that this could have been this? They're not. They've absolutely labeled it this. But there are people, armchair sleuths, that are trying to say that the police did something suspicious. And in this case, and see, they're trying to tie this because he was a Native American. They're trying to tie this one to the other one. And the only common thing is it was in the same jail, but it was 8 years before. And they both happen to be Native Americans, which there's a larger Native American population in that area. So that's nothing. That's, so this is where you got to be careful how you post things, how you word things, especially as a crime writer, because you can manipulate that whole 3 paragraphs that I wrote to make people believe there's something going on that's not. But if you understand how the process goes, how the procedures work, how they operate, then you can read that and you read it with a different set of eyes. Now, Tammy, after you and I talked about it, do you agree with me, or do you still think do you still have your same opinion?
No, what you said makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, when you don't know, how the procedure works, it breeds more conspiracy. And that's kind of the way it is. When you don't have all the information, everyone wants to go to conspiracy. And who doesn't love a good conspiracy? I mean, I like conspiracy theories. They're fun,
And me working with kids, if a child got hurt, I didn't call mom right away. I had to check
Yeah.
the child out. I had to do an incident report, you
Yeah.
know, different things, and then call mom if it was necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, to me, that is where I feel like the hospital staff there was the one that dropped the ball. Because the hospital staff person, if they were doing their job trying to save the kid, they wouldn't have taken time to call the mom in the first place. Why are you calling the mom? Get your butt back in there and do what you're supposed to be doing to save somebody. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that it doesn't tie back to Raymond Eacret, but all that does is it takes more attention away from Raymond Eacret because it's trying to tie something together that clearly does not belong. Now, there is another person named Peter Stewart. Now, Peter Stewart, I am not going to get into tonight because I do believe that there is a story behind Peter Stewart. I do not believe Peter Stewart is tied to Raymond Eacret, though, because it didn't. Peter Stewart's story has nothing to do with the Humboldt County Jail. So why they tied him in? He's in the same county. So the same county, he's in the same county. So they're trying to tie them all in like it's a conspiracy. And I'm like, okay, the county, just because he's in the same county, that's a whole different story, a whole different level of other things. So next week, we're going to talk about the tale of Peter Stewart, and we're going to see what's going on with him. But he is completely not tied to Raymond Eacret at all. So why anybody's trying to tie those two together, I don't know. But we are going to, just before we leave, because we're coming up on 45 minutes, we're going to talk about the last person, which was Martin Cotton. Martin Cotton died August 9th of 2007. Now, do you guys have anything else you want to say before we move on to Cotton?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Now, Cotton, this is, again, the third person that they're trying to convince people this is a big conspiracy, all tied into Raymond Eacret. Now, again, we're talking, this is 8 years, 7-8 years before Raymond Eacret. So this is, again, just the time. And the fact that there's not more in between 2007 and 2015 tells you that there's no connection, so, besides all that, now, if there were, several every year between there, then sure, they could be connected, but there's nothing in between there. So you can't connect the two. So, okay, we're going to talk about Mr. Martin Frederick Cotton II. Now, Martin Cotton was a 26-year-old man who died in the Humboldt County Jail. Okay, August 9th, 2007. Now, what happened with him is he had been arrested a week earlier. Let me find my details here. I'm scrolling down the screen as we go. So he had been arrested a week earlier. On the 2nd, he was arrested and incarcerated for possession of a controlled substance. He was released from jail on August 9th at 2:32 p.m. So 2:30 in the afternoon, he's released from jail. Just got out after being held for drug charges. Okay. He made his way over to the rescue mission at 2:30 when he was released. Okay. Now, at somewhere in between there, I contend he got jacked up on something, because when he goes to the rescue mission, they have this outdoor fenced-in area that they called the cage. It was a big high-walled, fenced-in area that all of the homeless people could hang out outside during the day, and then come into the to the place at night. So it was like they had this big mission camp set up, and so outside was benches and things you could sit on and hang out and whatever. Well, the owner, I believe his name was Hall. Let me look it up. Do you girls remember what the owner's name was? I think it was Hall.
I don't think I wrote it down now.
Yes. His name was Hall. Okay. What was his first name? I lost it. So anyways, the owner was a guy, Brian Hall. Brian Hall owned the property, and he was the one that ran the mission and trying to help all these homeless people. Well, he ended up having to ask Cotton to leave because Cotton became combative and decided to punch a homeless man in the temple without any provocation, just decided to start punching people. So he turns on Hall. And so Hall calls the police. A police officer shows up, and Martin is gone crazy, and he is hitting everybody, kicking everybody. He is beating the crap out of everybody that comes close. Well, one cop couldn't get him down. They tried to mace him. That didn't work. He tried his stick. That didn't work. He could not get this man. He could not get the man in his backseat of his patrol car. So he calls for backup. And then more officers show up. It took 6 men to wrestle Cotton into the backseat of the patrol car. Okay. 6 well-armed, well-trained men to get him in the back of the patrol car. It was bad enough that they called ahead at the prison. They called ahead at the prison and said, have extra guards ready because he's still combative. We can't get him calm in the car either. So they bring him into Humboldt County Jail. Okay, they bring him into Humboldt County Jail. The officers in the jail immediately start trying to wrestle him into a jail cell where he's supposed to be. They put him on a watch, so every 15 minutes somebody is checking on this guy because there's obviously something going on. He has just gone into this violent outburst. Every 15 minutes they check on him. Once within a couple hours after he's in the jail, checked into the jail, his breathing sounds funny. It kind of shallows a little bit, and they get worried. So they call the EMTs. He goes to the hospital and he dies. Now, then here comes this newspaper article from the Standard Times, and it says trauma not believed to be the cause of inmate's death. The injuries to Martin Frederick Cotton II received in fights with a struggle with the police on Old Town Thursday were extensive, but the doctor who conducted the autopsy doesn't believe that's why he died in custody. We are still waiting on the official cause of death is pending on the toxicology reports, which could take up to 2 weeks. Well, I never could find anything that said what the toxicology reports stated. Now, there was a big town hall meeting, and everybody there was like, every witness that came forward said Cotton was out of his mind. He was beating everybody half to death. Nobody could control him. You've seen somebody jacked up on crank. You've seen this. They are flipping powerful. I mean, they will beat the crap out of you. And it's not that they're in their right mind doing this. Okay. And so, but his father was fighting, saying he remembered his son as a free spirit and a lifelong interest in the arts, is what this article says. And that's good. That's what a daddy is supposed to remember his child as. But everybody that came through, all of the witnesses at the mission, all of the witnesses there at the jail, all of the witnesses came forward, said that Cotton was out of control. And I look at it as Cotton was out of control because he had taken some kind of substance. He was not in his right mind. But they were trying to say that this ties into Raymond Eacret, and this was police brutality, and this was this, and this was this. They never could say that any of the injuries that he got, he had bumps and bruises. He had slight concussion that was which is bleeding on the brain, but it was very slight, and it was not in the brain. It was actually more between your brain and your skull. There's a cavity space. There was slight, but he said it was very slight. Didn't look like it was anything that would cause any life-threatening. He didn't have any physical life-threatening injuries. So I'm going to ask you, Tammy and Cricket, do you believe that was police brutality?
Well, there's no one's come forward, and there's no evidence one way or the other. So how can we say for sure, because we don't know? And
well, to
people
me,
who do know, if they're not going to come forward and say this is what happened, and I will, fill out a statement.
Right. Well, I want to know who there is to come forward, because the guy that was running the homeless camp, the landowner got attacked.
Yeah.
The homeless person there got attacked. Several homeless people that were there came forward and verified that he was attacking people. Some of the jailers and different things came forward to witness that, say, yes, he was attacking so-and-so as they brought him in. So everybody along every step of the way, from the time he was released to the time he was brought back, say he was out of his mind and he was attacking people. To me,
Yeah.
I don't think it's police brutality, because you know where I think it would have been? And there's a lot of cops out there that I won't say a lot. There's some cops out there that would have done it. I believe that they could have shot him. And I know that there's cops out there that would have. If he's beating the crap out of them that bad, you know what I'm saying? I know some of them that wouldn't have hesitated.
And I think he's the one that is mentioned. I might be mistaken, but it's one of these that also schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And see, that to me, they labeled the article A Broken Vessel, and I think that's a good title. But to me, that shows me that they did try their best to get him in the jail cell and get him calmed down and get him, and I know, Tammy, when you talked to me, you said, well, if he's that bad, wouldn't they have taken him to the hospital?
Yeah.
And I said that if he wasn't, they didn't necessarily have to take him to the hospital. They had medical facilities in the jail. And if he's that combative, if they take him to the hospital, they put more people at risk. So they would take them to their own medical facilities. And they did have him on a watch where they were watching him every 15 minutes. Somebody was sent to check on him. So that tells me that they were trying to make sure that he was all right. But to me, if it was police brutality, it would have been somebody would have stepped over the line and just pulled a weapon.
Yeah, my question is, what else could they have done? How else are they going to?
Exactly.
So,
okay, so I'm going to go through and get my wheel of names pulled up here. Cricket, Tammy, do you have any closing thoughts on those things before we move on to the other stuff?
With the prisons, I mean, I'm a firm believer in this, that if inmates are combative, bring in the chair, bring in the spit mask until they're calm. I don't care if they have to sit in that chair in the cell for hours. That's the only way to protect them from themselves and others.
Yeah. Well, and see, the thing is what else is a cop supposed to do?
Yeah, they really don't have that many options.
What other options do they have? So I don't know. So let me take a quick poll while I'm writing down everybody that shared. I want you guys to take a quick poll in the comments. Do you think all of these cases are tied together? Joanne shared. Tammy, you haven't been writing all these down, have you?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I've got
so
Debbie.
You can double check.
I've got Debbie. I've got Venus. I've got Karen. Got Joanne. Billy Green, and then Haley. I'm not sure if she shared or not. She put share. So
yeah, she usually does. Okay. Okay. I was missing one. I thought I was. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put everybody there. So does anybody think, Joanne says tasing, they tried that? No, they didn't try tasing him. I don't think they did. They tried the macing him, and that didn't work. So no, they didn't tase him.
When you're on some of these drugs, especially like angel dust, you don't feel pain. You don't feel it. They can tase you or whatever, and you're not going to feel it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and see, to me, I've seen lots of episodes of police brutality where they do take it over the line. And in this case, there were so many ways that they could have taken it over the line, and they chose not to. So to me, I think they were doing the best that they could with the situation that they had. They already knew that he had problems because they had just released him at 2:30 that afternoon. So I don't see that it was police brutality. Okay,
And
we got a winner. The wheel of names. Anybody that wants to just to give them a plug for helping me out, it's wheelofnames.com. Anybody want to do it, you just put your names in on a list. It spins a colorful wheel and picks a name for you. And tonight our winner is Venus. Venus, I hope your ears are pierced, because now you're going to be the proud owner of 22 caliber earrings shot by Sonova.
Congratulations, Venus.
Well, and see, to me, this is more exciting than an autograph, because to me is like, I could give you an autograph, sure, or I could give you a freaking pair of bullets that I shot. Here you go. So, okay, let's see the comments. It says, Lori says, maybe the guy hurt his own self in part by committing his own violence. No one say what was caused by what. See, that's the thing. I never could find anything about the toxicology reports. And that's what they said. He was trying to beat up a lot of people. So he was getting as many hits as he was giving out, So we don't know that the homeless man didn't punch him back. And that was the one blow that, and they can't even say that any blows caused any problems. So if you have a taser, you don't realize who you might be tasing. Joanne says she'd buy some Friday. You want some earrings? Congrats, Venus. Okay. So Venus, you get a pair of bullets shot by me. I mean, earrings, it's the best way in the world to destroy evidence. No, I'm just teasing. It's totally fine to wear these.
We know what you're up to.
Well, I will tell you, these are real earrings shot by me. So I have already cleaned them and everything when I made them. But there might be traces of gunpowder residue on them. So if you have any kind of, alert allergies or anything like that, or you have sensitive ears, you might just look at them, because I don't want you to have any kind of allergy, something. These are not hypoallergenic in any way. These are bullets shot by me. So that's what they are. They're just little post earrings. And these are the brass color, the gold ones, because I don't have any more silver ones at the moment. So you're going to get brass,
that's because you've been shooting all the werewolves.
I have been. Now these have a little F on them. So that means they're Fiocchi brand. But yeah, these are bullets shot by me. Now, Joanne says she mentioned Friday. Yes, this weekend I will be, if you're in the Marshfield, Missouri area, come out and see me. Tammy and I will be sitting at a booth at the Marshfield Harvest Days Festival. I am going to be there. I will have all my books. I will have all of my earrings and things. I also will be there talking about different cold cases and things. And then you can sign up for my mailing list and, all that kind of fun stuff. You can bring your favorite cold case and we'll chat about it. That is going to be Friday and Saturday, this Friday and this Saturday at Marshfield, the 20th and 21st, I believe. So you'll actually get to see Tammy, because Tammy's not on camera, but she's going to be sitting with me. Debbie Wise says, do I sell those? I absolutely do. They're $5 plus shipping. So yeah. So I do sell them.
Lori,
if you want
Lori, are you near where Sonova's going to be this weekend?
I don't know where Lori lives.
She lives in Missouri. I'm just not sure where.
Yeah. I'll be in Marshfield. And then Lori, I'm going to be in Jeff City, at the Capitol on the 30th. Lori, you must be in northern Missouri then. 9 hours. So I will be at Jeff City at the Capitol. Yeah. I'll be at Jeff City at the Capitol on the 30th, and I'm going to make a video. I don't know if it'll be live, but I am going to record a video for you guys so you can see it. I'm going to give a speech to whoever will listen on behalf of the mothers in Madison County. So pray for me, send me all your good well wishes. Make sure and tune in. If you want to show up and meet me, go ahead. I'll be at the Capitol on the 30th. I'll be in, oh, good Lord, I almost said Madison County. I'm not going there. I'm going to be Marshfield. Marshfield's a wonderful place. We're going to Marshfield this weekend. The 30th, I'll be in Jeff City. Okay. Debbie, if you want some of these, just talk to me through Messenger. I'll get you some. All right, guys. I think that's all
3
I have.
hours, not 9.
Okay, I was going to say, I can get almost to the ocean in 9 hours. So I was like, where, girl, are you? You're 9 hours away in Missouri. I'm not sure you drive. So I thought, oh, well, maybe I'm messed up on my time. Okay. Debbie says you need to come to Mississippi. Absolutely come to Mississippi. I used to have a great aunt-in-law that lived down there. She kept telling us to come down there. She lived on the beach and we never did. And now she's passed away. And I was like, dang it, I missed my opportunity. So, all right, guys, I'm going to get off here. I hope you guys have enjoyed this story. But I also hope you learned a few things. But most important, please share this video because we want Raymond to have more information out there because Raymond's case does need a coroner's inquest. They do need somebody to open it up and see what happened to that guy because he could not have broken his ribs like that and still did this. So make sure and share it. And if any of the family watches this, just want to let you know that we all care and that we are going to share this and we won't stop talking about Raymond. All right, guys. Thank you. Girls, you want to tell everybody bye?
Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And
Absolutely.
Have a great week.
All right. Bye, guys. Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you.